What's up, YouTube? So today I want to talk about what I think is the most unique soft synth on the market. So before I get all those comments, I know it's not a new plugin, so to speak, and it's not a new design either. But that being said, there's some really special stuff in here, specifically for the more kind of psychedelic music, and we'll get into it shortly. Let's dive in and have a look. So in an era where close to every soft synth on the market is a wavetable synth with however many different, filter types and all sorts of stuff like that built in, I think something like the Buchla Easel V is particularly special for various reasons. And I think it kind of forces you to think out the box when you're sound designing. And I want to jump into a couple of those in this video. So this is the ARTIOM Buchla Easel V. It's a remake of course, the Buchla Easel. For those who don't know too much about the history of, synthesis and that kind of thing, I would say there's kind of two main parties who are responsible for synthesis as we know it. You get Bob Moog, who was doing, let's just say, the more musical stuff. And then you get Don Buchla, who is doing the weirder, eccentric, let's just say, more psychedelic synthesis and that kind of thing. And the Buchla Easel was his most, let's say, musical example of a synthesizer. I think it was the only one that actually had a piano-style keyboard. The rest of them all had different types of inputs and all sorts of weird and wonderful ways of playing the sounds. And I think that's something, special about the Buchla synths all on their own. But I think the cool thing about the Easel is that it's still very, very unique. It's just a more eccentric, unusual take on what we know as synthesis. And a couple of examples of this are the fact that the built-in sequencer is a 5-step sequencer. There's no filters, and there's various other things that kind of depart from the traditional synthesis as we know it. This would most commonly be called the West Coast style of synthesis. Although, again, like I said, the Easel was Buchla's East Coast style synthesis. So like I said, there's a piano keyboard, you can do musical things with it, but the audio path and the sound design elements are very, very much West Coast. So let's dive into a couple of those things and explore the beauty of the Buchla Easel. So this is a patch that I created that I want to show you guys before we dive into creating our own patches. It's a kind of simple, I would say techno bass, but it's kind of got more of a rhythmic element to it, and it can go to the point where it's kind of unmusical, like more kind of percussive and rhythmic. And there's a couple of things here that I think, outline what's really cool about the synth itself. First up is the fact, like I said, you've got this 5-step sequencer. So you can set it to step in stages of 4 if you use the selector over here. But that being said, I like the idea of having that kind of polyrhythmic element, and that in itself creates almost a whole new layer of musicality into it. So what I want to do is I actually just want to show you what I've got here. I just want to solo it quick. So as you can see, I mean, it's just a single note playing, but it's got this kind of weird offbeat rhythm, and that's due only in part to the fact that we're stepping it on 5 and muting one of the switches. So here, say for example, if let's set it to something like a 4 or a 3, we get more of a, expected rhythm. Which is cool, but like I said, having the option to do things outside of the box is the specialities, and I think the beauty of the design of the easel. So of course it's a semi-modular synth, so you have the ability to interpatch things as you want. So we've got this sequencer. We're at the moment only sequencing the pulses or the triggers of the sequence. I'm going to get into the pulsar just now. We've got a voltage level sequencer. So you can use this to sequence the pitch if you want, or you can use it to sequence anything else in the patch. So how the sort of sound parameters work in this guy is you can see they're pretty much in groups of 2. Each one has like a one with an arrow, and then the actual parameter itself. And we can sequence something like this timbre over here. So what this is I believe it's applying some sort of FM or something. Essentially, you've got 2 oscillators within the easel. You've got the modulation oscillator and the complex oscillator. You've got the ability to get a lot more variation out of the waveform using this timbre control here, using a couple of these other parameters, which I'm going to get into. But the cool thing is that you can sequence that control. So I just want to show you guys what this is doing. So I might be wrong. I don't understand exactly how the internals of this work, but I believe the timbre is a kind of FM, and this is a mix between 2 oscillators that are within the complex oscillator, but I might be wrong. But that's kind of what it sounds like to me. So this frees up the modulation oscillator to do LFOs and that kind of thing. So you're pretty flexible within how you can shape the sound tonally, as well as how you can use these oscillators either within audio range or as modulators or anything like that. And you can use this modulation oscillator as another FM source or something like that, and then tune it and all sorts of stuff. So we're going to get into that just now. So under each of the modulation inputs, you see you've got the arrow, and then you've got a subsequent black little banana node. So these are all patched at the moment, so I'm not able to patch another one. But you can see if you want to sequence a parameter, you simply just drag it in to one of these black little nodes, and you use this as the amount that it's going to sequence. So check this out. All the white ones here, these are all random outputs. I've actually got a random going into the decay of the pulsar, but what we can do is we can actually sequence that with the CV as well. One thing that's a little bit weird about this that you got to kind of wrap your head around at first is these time parameters work backwards, so they're going, downwards increases the amount of time as opposed to increases the speed. Like it would in a traditional plugin or something like that. So let's just check how this sounds, but I'll show you a little workaround. So you see these bottom ones are actually opening the decay as opposed to the other way around. But here we've actually got a inverter. So that allows us to invert the voltage. So here we can sequence the pitch if we want, using that. I'm actually going to put in like a techno drum beat kind of thing just to make things a little bit less boring. I think that would suit this vibe, and a little bit of reverb and a bit of sidechain as well. So what we've done here is we've set this modulation oscillator to FM, the complex oscillator. Even though we've got that kind of sequence going on the timbre, it's kind of added that extra grit, which is really, really cool. So here, what I want to do is I want to modulate this parameter, this kind of FM amount. So obviously how we would do that is using this black input over here. So let's use this envelope generator to kind of create an LFO. So how would we do that? We would run it into the black input, the one with the little arrow above it. And let's just turn this all the way up for now so we can hear exactly what's going on. We might want to turn this down, I think. And then here, let's set this envelope generator to self. And you'll see here, this thing has just started flashing relentlessly. So here what we can do is, let's turn this attack up and this decay down. And you see we've kind of created what looks like a sine wave here. we can use these kind of pulse sequence switches to kind of isolate those elements and create these layers which we can kind of EQ or process separately. So here in this kind of sound, I'm hearing two main elements. There's kind of a percussive FME sound as well as the bass sound. So let's use these switches to isolate those. I want to apply some of this built-in reverb. So I want to bounce this out and then we can look into those other layers. Cool. Let's put it into some Psytrance examples. So here, let's put this in Buchla Easel. I want to check the key of this track. Looks like it's in G. So let's just put in some long Gs. And let's just go new preset. So let's look at like a classic FM example. Let's tune this complex oscillator to C1. And then I can turn my keyboard down an octave. So it's the same note as it was before. Let's set this modulation over here to FM OSC and turn this modulation up. And now we will need to turn this timbre up to get the FM sound. Let's maybe turn this up one more, and then we've got kind of got more range. Sounds nice. But what we can do is we can use a random over here to modulate the amount. So let's use one of these white outputs, put it into the black input. And then let's turn this timbre down. So what's happening is because this random voltage is on keyboard mode, every time we trigger a key, it's going to spit out a random voltage. We can put this on sequencer mode, so that allows us to hold the key. Let's just put some effects on here. The memory brigade is really nice, sort of more on the clean side. Let's just put it into ping pong mode. Let's turn sync on. The modulation oscillator can quickly be switched into low frequency mode, which is of course like an LFO. Then you got some pretty crazy control to, take it into the, squelchy, random, high-tech lead kind of territory by applying randoms to the pitch of the oscillator as well as the frequency of the low frequency oscillator and doing those sounds like I was showing you here. That is pretty much it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. A big thanks to IDM Mag, proud supporters of the dance music scene and my channel. I am going to be uploading these presets to my Patreon for all my $5 supporters. So if you want to know what that's all about, check out the link that's going to be on the screen right now. And as always, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. See you guys next time.